Okay, I have some advice to share with you today that should help you if you're feeling overwhelmed by jazz harmony. This is a normal phase to go through, so don't sweat it. But I'm going to give you two central tenets that will help you feel more in command of the harmony. And we're going to look at a tune to reinforce the concepts. And these are going to apply to songbook harmony. Once we get into the composition of people like Coltrane and Wayne Shorter, it gets a little bit more nebulous. But for now, understand these two ideas. One, complexity is built upon simplicity. And two, everything is tonic, subdominant, or dominant function. Okay, so number one sounds kind of silly, but hear me out. I think a lot of people are overwhelmed by jazz harmony because they see a bunch of standalone chords, some of them what people consider uncommon. They aren't able to group things together and understand devices as an extension of simple harmony. So how does this tie into number two? Well, we typically think of tonic, subdominant, and dominant functions as the simplest foundation of Western harmony. Our folk songs and nursery rhymes, for the most part, don't have 6 or 3 or 2 or 7. Usually we say that 1, 3, and 6 are tonic functions, and 2 and 4 are subdominant functions, and 5 and 7 are dominant functions. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to convert every chord to its 1-4-5 counterpart. You don't need to play 4 when you see 2. This is just here to help you understand that even the passages that look confusing are just extensions of this simplicity. So to help us understand these ideas, we're going to look at all the things you are. Some of you might know the tune already, but struggle to play over it. If you look at this tune and see 36 chords you need to play over, you're going to be overwhelmed. Essentially, what we're going to do is go through the changes and understand them in the simplest way possible. Now, one disclaimer. In the interest of time, I'm not really going to go into figuring out the key centers here. What I mean by that is I'm just going to say, okay, this section is in A flat. And you might wonder, well, how do you know we're in A flat and not E flat? And that's a good question, just beyond the scope of this video. And I'm sure there are plenty of videos out there on figuring that stuff out. But for now, just roll with me so I can get this point across. Okay, so this whole first section from the F minor to the D flat is all diatonic to A flat. F minor 7 is 6, B flat minor 7 is 2, E flat 7 is 5, A flat major 7 is 1, and D flat major 7 is 4. You could analyze everything relative to F minor, meaning that F minor 7 is 1, B flat minor 7 is 4, and so on. I much prefer to think of the major side of the coin. So if we were to refer to the list above regarding function, we could understand F minor 7 to be a tonic chord, B flat minor 7 to be subdominant, E flat 7 to be dominant, A flat major 7 to be tonic, and D flat major 7 to be subdominant. This 5-chord segment is really just 1-4-5-1-4. Now, I said earlier that the point isn't to convert these things. We don't need to do anything with this information, aside from making the observation that even though we have chords of varying root and quality, we can understand them as nothing more than dressed up versions of simple harmony, yeah? Okay, next we have G7 to C major 7. This is just 5-1 in C. Nothing to really see here, but again, I'm always stressing diatonic playing. If you're savvy, you can play 5 bars in A flat and then 3 bars in C. You still have to target the right notes, but it sure beats thinking of 7 chords that have nothing to do with one another, in my opinion. Alright, the next 8 bars of the tune follow the same pattern, so we're not going to spend much time here. This time, the structure is repeated in E flat major, moving to G major at the end. This time, we have a 2 half diminished chord. This does not change the function of the chord. It's borrowed from a parallel scale, but it's still a subdominant. It still functions as 2 or 4. More on this later. Next, the bridge has 2 2-5s. The first goes to G, nothing crazy there. Subdominant, dominant, tonic. The second is another 2 half diminished, but resolving to a major 1. Again, this doesn't change the function of the progression. It's still subdominant, dominant, tonic. We then have a C7 augmented, getting us back to F minor. And even though it's a bit dressed up, it's still just a dominant chord. We continue by repeating the first 5 bars. Our 6th bar is a minor 4 chord. Once again, still subdominant. We then have C minor 7, which is 3, or tonic A flat. Here comes the tricky one, B diminished. Diminished chords are dominant in function. This one derives from G7, even though it doesn't resolve to C minor. This is another device that is kind of beyond the scope of this video, so I'll ask you to take my word for it that it's just a dominant chord. Finally, we wrap up with a 2-5 to A flat, and then a 5 going back to F minor at the top. So the functions of this entire 12-bar segment are tonic, subdominant, dominant, tonic, subdominant, subdominant, tonic, dominant, subdominant, dominant, tonic, dominant. The key center might change, but the function of the chord relative to the key is always one of those three, tonic, subdominant, or dominant. Okay, so what are the takeaways here that actually help us? Well, we've taken a standard that moves around a lot and understood it in its simplest form. There are around 36 chords, give or take, but each one of them can be understood as tonic, subdominant, or dominant in one of 6 or 7 key centers. Now, does this excuse you from having vocabulary over these chords? Of course not, but it should make the process of playing over the tune easier. How? Because we're recognizing the symmetry and distilling the tune to its essential devices. When I say devices, I'm talking about all the harmonic moves that make up jazz harmony. Major and minor vocab, major 2-5s, minor 2-5s, turnarounds, etc. Instead of taking this tune chord by chord and saying, okay, I need F minor stuff, B flat minor stuff, E flat 7 stuff, A flat major 7 stuff, etc., we can break it into chunks by device. For example, minor vocab, major 2-5-1, major, major 2-5-1, rinse, repeat. Now, you might say, okay, well, I can do all of that without understanding everything as tonic, subdominant, or dominant. What's the point? Sure, you're absolutely right. The only reason I encourage you to hone that skill is to understand that even the most complicated tunes in the songbook are just embellishments of simple harmony. And when you come across a chord that seems out of place or confuses you, it's good to be able to say, oh, that's just 5 in this key, or whatever. In this way, jazz harmony is simple. Everything complex is an embellishment of something simple. If you can adopt this mentality, hopefully you'll have an easier time and will feel less overwhelmed when you're presented with a tune with a lot of chords. All right, go for it.